Hi, I'm Samantha Johnson, and I'm a Senior Assistant Director for Career Education at the BU Center for Career Development, also referred to as the CCD. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and in this video, we're going to be talking about resume writing. Specifically, we're going to be getting into how to format a resume effectively for a job search or an internship search or another purpose. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so there is a separate video on the Center for Career Development, or again, the CCD, that provides an overview of all of our services and resources. But I wanted to still provide a little bit of information about who we are in this video before jumping into that resume writing content. So the CCD is open to BU students at any level, undergrad, graduate, PhD, from any BU school or college, and we also serve alumni throughout their lives and careers. Our services range from one-on-one appointments to workshops, as well as employer events. And lastly, we serve folks at any stage in their career journey. So if you're in the process of making decisions or exploring academic and career options, looking for ways to build experience and skill, to strengthen your resume, or looking to network, evaluate an offer, negotiate, or more, we're definitely here to help support you through that. Okay, so jumping right in, we're going to get into talking about resume formatting. Really, the importance of this is that your reader, that first reader of your resume, typically a recruiter, is only typically going to spend about 6 to 15 seconds with that initial review before moving on or maybe continuing to read a bit further. So you want to really be able to capture their attention, to engage them, and to have them continue reading. And your formatting and presentation can allow them to get through your content quickly, to know where to look for key pieces of information. So this can really set you up for success. On this slide, you'll get a little bit of perspective into how someone's reviewing your resume. So typically a resume is read from top to bottom and left to right. So you should be putting your most important content and elements in that top left corner. Anything that's less important can be in the bottom right. And you'll see in each of those quadrants of the slide what information should go there. So name, for sure, your name should be big on your resume. It should be easily seen and visible. Other key pieces of information are position, titles, degree information. So that could be your degree title and what you studied, your major, your institution, and so on, as well as the organization name. So employers, internship sites, and so on. And we'll get into this more, but for those key pieces of information, you can typically use stylized fonts, so bold, italics, all caps, to help further differentiate them or capture the eye of your reader. The least important or less important details tend to be dates, locations. Those typically can be in regular font. You don't need to necessarily use the bold or italics there to draw extra attention to them, but they are good pieces of information to include in your document. The last bullet point there is less relevant information. So again, if someone's reading from top to bottom, they're going to be spending a lot of attention and focus on the top, and then it's possible that they'll kind of scan over that bottom portion even more quickly. So making sure that your most relevant content's at the top of the page, it's your strongest experiences, and then go from there. There's a lot on this slide, but I'll take a moment and talk through these various points. These outline some of the best practices that you should follow for resume formatting. I'll give you just a moment to take a look at it before we jump in. Okay, so first bullet point is length. So ideally, you're sticking to one page. That's really the reality, at least in the United States, that folks don't spend a lot of time reading each resume. And so keeping it to a page is going to allow that person to hopefully get through that content in that short period of time that they're using to review it. So it's important to maximize the space on that page. If you do have any additional pages, and there are some exceptions for extent of experience and industry. So if you have additional pages, you should include your name and page number on those additional pages. Second point there, so it's important to avoid stock templates, to create your own resume. And I think stock templates can be popular. I've seen them when going through search processes or being on a hiring committee, reviewing resumes and appointments. But they have some drawbacks, and I think they're ones to consider and take into account. First, they're not always flexible, so they can limit how you want to format your resume. And if you want to make changes down the road, sometimes it might be difficult to do so within that template. Yeah, I think also sometimes they could potentially give a wrong impression to your reader, or if a reader's seeing the same formatted resume time and time again in terms of a particular template, that might communicate something to the reader. It's ultimately easier and safer to just go ahead and make your own. Next, use section headers. So section headers like education, experience, skills, those make your document easier to read and easier to scan. They help your reader, be able to know where to look for particular information and help orient them on your document. Next, space out your sections and descriptions. It's good to add space after each section to help differentiate one from the next. And you can also add space between items within a section. Next one is only black ink and no graphics. So applicant tracking software is pretty commonly used by employers. It can also be referred to as ATS. And the black ink and no graphics is suitable for that type of software. So I think some of the graphic elements and design elements can sometimes be challenging or hard for that software to read. So you're better off focusing on the content, having clean formatting that's easy for your reader to review, and not having distractions with some of the design pieces. And again, there might be exceptions to that. If you are in a design field or graphic design, you might choose to have a design resume or one with more graphic elements to showcase that skill set. It is still a good idea to have a more traditional resume as well. Second column, so dates should be right aligned. That provides a good visual timeline to your reader of when you were at various experiences and for how long. Within each section of your resume, your experiences should be listed in reverse chronological order, from current or most recent experience to your oldest. Use standard bullet dots or black dot bullets. Those, again, bullet points as opposed to sentence formatting or paragraph formatting, make it easier for your reader to scan that document. And next point, using standard font. So there's a few recommendations there. We recommend using 11 to 12 point font. And for margins, slightly unrelated, but still a good best practice, try to stick to 1/2 inch to 1 inch margins. This is huge, consistency throughout. So this, again, helps your reader scan the document, be consistent with spacing, with the fonts that you use, font size, dates and where they're located and how they're formatted, punctuation, and more. So there is some choice in how you do this, but if you choose to do something, do it consistently. If you bold your employer, for instance, in your first experience, then bold the employer throughout your resume. If you use periods at the end of the bullet point, use periods for every bullet point throughout your document. Presentation matters. You want to make it easy for your reader to find key information about your candidacy, and you don't want anything to distract them from that. Not on the slide, but also avoid typos and grammatical errors. Your resume provides an example of your writing skills. It can speak to your attention to detail. And it's important that you're making a good impression in that way. Review it carefully, ask for feedback from someone else in your community or network, as well as take advantage of the review options through the CCD, which I'll refer to or kind of explain in more depth at the end. Okay, so here's an example, and I can kind of call out some of the things that we just talked about. Uh, so, the name here is catching our attention. That's one of those key pieces of information that we discussed. You can see different types of stylized font being used. There's all caps used consistently for section headers. The organization names are consistently bolded. The dates and locations are less important, so those are kind of in regular font, but still included. You see the dates down that right-hand margin and are right aligned. Yeah, position titles italicized to help differentiate those important pieces of information. And you'll also see lastly that there's a line of space between each section, and it looks like there might be maybe half a line of space between items within a section. Here's an example just a bit further down the document. You can see, again, a little bit of space between each item. Within a section, the experiences are listed within reverse chronological order. Bullet points are being used, which help us to be able to scan it more quickly. And this individual is including bullet points at the end of their phrases. And so they're doing that throughout. There's a bullet point or a period at the end of each bullet point. Okay, so let's dive into some of the sections a bit more specifically. So the main sections on a resume, and then we'll go into each of those sections and discuss it in more depth, is header, so your name and your contact information, your education, experience, and experience can be broad. It can be work experience or part-time paid positions. It can be unpaid or paid internships, other types of experiences like research, leadership opportunities, and so forth, and then skills. The right-hand column are optional sections. Different types of experiences that you can highlight, awards and honors, publications, certifications if that's relevant. I'll comment just briefly on summary statements and objectives. An objective is typically a concise phrase that focuses the attention of your reader on your goal or the position or job function to which you're focusing on. Your summary statement is either paragraph, sentence form, or short bullet points that highlight key experiences, skills, knowledge, that are relevant and tailored to that specific position description. So they're kind of at the very top of your page, which is getting seen first by your reader. It's what are your key summary points or takeaways that you want to make sure your reader gets early. Summaries can definitely be helpful for certain folks. I think when they're creating a resume, if you have a good bit of experience or maybe a curvy career path, they can help summarize that and create a picture as to, again, your most important experiences or qualifications. These are both optional. So you can make some decisions around whether you feel like having that content at the top of your resume makes sense, whether it adds additional value and impact, or whether that space might be better utilized for something else on your particular resume. So for a header, and you'll see some examples down the right-hand side, it's your name. Your name should be big, easy to see. And then the contact info is really how are they going to reach out to you? So phone number, email address, and include one of each, whatever is the best way for them to get in touch with you. Optional list, so you don't have to include a location, but city and state could include pronouns, your LinkedIn URL, or any other links that you might want to share. Could be a personal website, a GitHub, or a portfolio. Okay, for education section, similar format on the slide. So there's required pieces of information. So your name of your university could just be Boston University. In this case, they've used Boston University Wheelock School of Education. Location, so Boston, Mass. Full degree name, so Bachelor of Science degree in what they studied. Education and Human Development is the major. And then the expected graduation date, similar to your other dates, goes out in that right-hand margin, expected May 2024. And this will be a little bit different than the dates below. Typically for an experience, you'll have start and end dates. And then again, a list of optional fields or pieces of information that you can include. So you could include a GPA, any honors or awards like Dean's List. If you've been on the Dean's List for a number of semesters, and it's clunky to list out every term or semester, you could write Dean's List and then in parentheses afterwards include the number of semesters that you were on the Dean's List. Relevant courses, so that typically would be 3 to 6 upper level or specialized courses. Again, tailor those to the position description. What classes would showcase relevant knowledge or skill for that position to which you're applying? And then lastly, education section is a great place to include a study abroad experience. If you are an undergraduate student and you're a year into your time at BU, we'd typically recommend removing high school. Again, space is tight on a resume. It's just one page. And so that space could definitely be used for something else, more recent, stronger to your goal. Okay, and then getting into the experience sections, some similar pieces of information are included here. So position title, organization name, as I mentioned, start and end dates, location, and then your bullet points. So those are key achievements, key contributions that you want to call out that hopefully should relate to specific skills or transferable skills that would be needed in the position that you're applying to. So you'll see that all in the example. Mass Creative, they've decided to bold all their organization names on their resume. They're italicizing all of their position titles, their campaign organizing intern, and then they haven't bolded or italicized either their locations or their start and end dates, but they are included here. And then they've used that standard black dot bullet points with their supporting contributions. And you can have multiple experience sections. You could have a related experience section and an additional experience section. That, for instance, could be helpful if you want to maintain that reverse chronological order, but there's an older experience that you want to appear closer to the top of your resume because it's more relevant to your goal. That way you can pull it from the bottom of your resume, stick it in a related experience section, keep reverse chronological order, but have it up to the top and have your reader be able to see really quickly that this is relevant to their needs. You can play around too with the name of this section. It could be a functional header that reflects what you did. So it could be clinical experience or research experience, teaching experience. So consider what header best represents the experiences that fall underneath it and is going to most kind of resonate with your reader. Okay, for the skills section, this can be situated at different places on your resume. I think for technical resumes, maybe a computer science one or a resume for a software development position. Sometimes I'll see that technical or skill section appear closer to the top of the page, maybe after an education section and before an experience section. This can also, though, appear at the bottom of a resume. So again, you have some choice in where you put this. These skill sections, so the first one has some subheaders. So they have a few italicized subheaders under the overarching skills header. So they have a list of computer programs that they are proficient in, as well as the languages with the level of proficiency afterwards and in parentheses. So in this case, French, The proficiency is intermediate, and that's in parentheses after the language. Lab techniques, that could also be fitting depending on what you're applying for in your background. So skills is great for specialized, field-specific skills. Softer skills or transferable skills like communication, teamwork, analytical skills. So the analytical tools specifically would be helpful to list here. So if you have experience with SPSS, I'd put that in your skills section. But if you're listing a more transferable skill, maybe it's problem solving, those are better, better communicated or stronger when they're located within the bullet point where you use that. So situate those types of skills in the bullet point. This is good for, some of those more field specific skills. And, with that, these are also helpful to incorporate into your bullet points. So if you can show how you've used Adobe InDesign within one of the roles that you've held, that definitely situates that text or that skill within the context where you used it. The applicant tracking software, or the ATS, again, it looks for keywords from the position description in your document. And it also weights where it finds those keywords. So if it's finding a keyword within your experience section, it's going to weight it a bit more heavily than if it's just situated in a skills section. All right, and publications. So this is just one example of how you could format your publications. I mentioned in the introductory video for resumes that CVs often have a list of publications. Depending on your field and what your goal is, if you have publications in your background or your experience or list of accomplishments, those could be worth including on your resume. All right, and quickly, just to run through some resume review options, there are a number of ways that you can get feedback on your resume. First is VMOC, so instant online reviews of that document. I'll give you a little bit more information about VMOC on the next slide. Second, drop-in hours for both resume and cover letter reviews. And lastly, we have 30-minute resume and cover letter review appointments, which can be scheduled through Handshake. So VMOC is that online platform that provides immediate feedback on your resume. It is strict in its scoring, so it gives you a score out of 100. We typically say focus more on the practical feedback that you get through the platform and trying your best to incorporate that and less on the score, especially to start. It'll give you overall feedback and even feedback on each bullet point that you have in your document. When making edits, make as many changes as you can at one time before uploading your resume again. So you get a limited number of uploads in each academic year, and then that resets for the next academic year. But maximize those uploads, get the most that you can out of VMOC before you take that next step and talk to a person. And typically, formatting is one of the areas in VMOC that you're able to make the biggest leaps or bounds in scoring. So this is a great first step to kind of see what formatting feedback you'll get before, again, coming to a person, and then maybe being able to focus a bit more on content in that in-person or virtual resume review appointment. And lastly, just wanted to share some contact information. So you'll see here, this is a screenshot or an image within our building. So we are located at the Yawkey Center for Student Services at 100 Bay State Road on the 5th and 6th floors. You can find information on our website linked here, as well as on our blogs. There's a lot of resume writing content there that might be helpful in your formatting and creation of that document. And lastly, you'll see our email address, social media accounts, as well as YouTube. So we hope to connect with you virtually and in person. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Thanks so much for watching. I hope it was helpful in figuring out how you can best format and present your content in your resume. And I hope you'll continue on to learn a little bit more about how to create effective bullet points and strong content in your resume document. So thanks for joining and hope you have a good one.